Welcome to A Brief History of Conspiracy.
This week, ancient civilisations on Mars.
So this week we're talking aliens, because we know it's always aliens. We're talking Sidonians and Utopians and Reptilians. And the Reptilians are particularly naughty in this episode. So the mainstream says that Mars was created about 4.6 billion years ago. By 3.1 billion years ago it had lost its atmosphere because its molten core cooled and it lost its magnetic field.
Fields, let the atmosphere be.
But if we're going to terraform Mars, how are we going to get a magnetic field back again?
That's a very good question, because even we could terraform the surface. How would we terraform the core?
The sun
you
would
can't create a
molten
molten core if there's no longer a molten core, and therefore you can't really create the electromagnetic fields. Therefore, any atmosphere we create would be stripped away again over time, unless it was being constantly replenished by a continual process.
Or we get a massive dome all the way around the planet, like Spaceballs, the movie.
Yeah, why not?
And then just hope no bad guys with giant vacuum cleaner transformer robot spaceships come to try to steal it. So Spaceballs the movie might be the way to go.
Might be.
Yeah, Mel Brooks. Thank you very much, mate. Gives us a good idea there. Or we'll all live under domes on Mars, which is, I think, probably the way we'll go, isn't it? Like, giant centre parks. We'll just all live under domes.
Quite possibly.
On Mars, I thought. Anyway, totally off topic on that one. Really quickly. So where did this story really start then?
Well, I guess one of the first things that brought our attention to the surface of Mars was following the pictures released from the Viking orbiter in '76.
Made famous particularly by the X-Files. It was on the starting sequence of the X-Files, The Face on Mars. Yes, the Viking 1 orbiter. The original image is very low resolution, but it was a face.
Mapping or a picture of a face on the Cydonia region, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Cydonia region
of Mars.
In '97, then the Mars Global Orbiter went and took more higher resolution pictures, and it came back and it just looked like a hill. It didn't look like anything. But then two more have gone back in the noughties and done 3D imaging of the area now, and actually some of those images, particularly the 3D images, you can kind of see a face. Yeah,
it does seem more apparent in the third
500 million years worth of erosion, maybe, but it kind of looks like a face.
Does make me wonder the lack of interest from NASA to send another probe back to take another picture of that same exact region, or perhaps with the two rovers that have been exploring Mars,
drive one of them in that direction,
or land one close to Cydonia.
Yeah, and have a poke around.
It seems like that would be what you would do if you were interested in either disproving or crediting what the face on.
Because there's also region. Very close to this face on Mars, other people have identified pyramids.
Yes.
This Dr. Horace Crater has worked on this a lot. He says it's hundreds of millions of one that this is natural. He doesn't believe it's natural at all.
No, just because of the geometry in the geology in that area, it would be remarkable for it to be.
When he's connected them all up, and you get this golden.
Yeah, there's a golden mean spiral, and I think pi appears and various other mathematical.
Which makes it very mathematically very unlikely that this is natural.
It means it's very likely that the area was planned by an intelligent being that had an understanding of mathematics.
And some of the images, you see the one particularly is like this 5-sided pyramid. It looks clean. It looks like a 5-sided pyramid. It seems very uniform. So some of those images are really interesting. There's been lots of them. This Scott C. Waring guy though is really jumped on this and released lots of images. Some of them, he says, this one looks like a skeleton, this one looks like a statue, and then you've got the little pyramid that, when you zoom in on it, it looks like the tip of a pyramid, but you zoom out, you realise it's actually only that big, and so that tends to affect the credibility a little bit.
Yeah, it does a little bit. And then I suppose we didn't mention Hoagland as well. He was probably, I suppose, the first guy from the 1976 pictures that of the Cydonia region that started analysing them and finding some of these mathematical anomalies between different points of interest within that region.
Yeah. And that does just open up the possibility that there might have been some sort of civilization on Mars.
Yes. Yeah. So the mainstream theory is that 3.1 billion years ago, Mars lost its atmosphere due to the molten core solidifying and no longer providing an electromagnetic field to protect its atmosphere from the sun's harmful rays.
Yeah, totally lost its shielding. Atmosphere blew away.
Yep.
I mean, literally. Yeah.
However, there are some conflicting theories that would argue with this timeline. And there's a Dr. Johnny Brandenburg that believes that there was an ancient civilization on the surface of Mars about 180 to 500 million years ago. The date's not very specific, but there's probably very little evidence to narrow the timeline down.
Are you saying there's very little evidence to support his theory?
Well, no.
I often to that.
He believes that there's evidence of past civilisations that were perhaps destroyed by nuclear explosions in two specific regions, the Sidonius Mensa region and the Galaxius Chaos region.
He actually estimated that there was two blasts, one was bigger than the other, but one of them was 1 million megatons.
And I think our biggest is 200 megatons, is it, on this planet?
It's roughly 100,000 times bigger than the biggest bomb we've ever even thought about. And the Russians called their one bomb the Earth Killer, the one because it was so big. But yeah, 1 million megatons is about 1 billion tons of TNT. And also, when the Mars Odyssey rover went, they used it again a mass spectrometer, and they found abundant concentrations of uranium, thorium, potassium.
Yep.
Again, in these two specific regions. The Cydonia region is the most interesting because that's where the face is as Mars is. But initially, Dr. Brandenburg believed, who was a nuclear physicist. He's quite a bright guy. Initially, he believed this was caused by a phenomenon that we see on the Earth. It was something I never knew about. Natural nuclear reactors.
Yes.
You get a lump of uranium on Earth that forms naturally. They interact with each other, like protons going blue blue, and they create energy. There is actually a theory that it might have actually kick-started some bursts of evolution on the Earth because the radiation...
Essentially, yeah.
The radiation formed genetic mutations, which, all the fish started getting 3 eyes and we started getting,
So being the children of the atom possibly isn't too far away from being true.
But it explains certain... Because in our evolution, we get, lifespan, and then you get bursts of evolution.
Yes.
And they think it might be one explanation to explain why that might happen in certain cases. Dr. Brandenburg initially thought this was a massive natural reactor on Mars, and obviously Mars without an electromagnetic field gets far more blasted by the sun,
UV rays.
So when you get these lumps of, which we discussed in our moon episode, when you get lumps of these uranium, it gets blasted by neutrons, and you do get much more volatile reactions. So that's what he initially thought. Changed his mind after a while, and then he started talking about potentially that they were attacked by some sort of alien species.
Yes. I
think it's the Greys. The way it's sort of described, it sounds like it's the Greys.
He's going down the Grey route, is he?
Yeah, that it was attacked from a species from outside of our galaxy, came here and wiped them out. So one of the problems is that, from a timeline point of view, mainstream science suggests that Mars lost its atmosphere 3.1 billion years ago, but Brandenburg estimates these attacks happened 500 to 180 million years ago by the decay rate. When he's looked at the decay rate of the
isotopes that he's identified of.
That's a bit of a gap. So Brandenburg, he, like I say, he's a nuclear physicist. He's got lots of significant evidence. He's very believable.
Yes, does seem like a very credible theory.
But then he said some things that affects his credibility. He talked about in 2014 a paper that had been written by Horgan and Bell in 2011. He cited that they'd discovered evidence of trinitite, which is like melted glass basically on Mars, which is again evidence of a nuclear blast. We see that on Earth, these little balls of melted carbon and things. Unfortunately, when you go back and look at the paper, it doesn't mention that at all. There's no mention to this trinitite. So unfortunately, he references something that's not true, and that affects his credibility.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. That definitely affects the credibility of his theory.
So when Brandenburg discusses these things, he actually talks about the war on Mars even making the Bible. So in Revelations 12:7, there's talk about this war in the heavens, and he actually points to that as some evidence to say even our ancient ancestors knew that this conflict had happened.
Well, I suppose if you think about the size of the supposed nuclear explosions on the surface of Mars, they would be visible from the Earth without a telescope.
But actually some people have gone further than that and suggested that there may have been refugees from Mars, from this conflict, come to the Earth to tell people. Now, this is when we start getting into some of the more out there theories.
Yes.
And we are going to go again to our friend David Icke. David Icke, who loves the reptilian. Right, now, I mentioned the reptilians were naughty buggers.
Okay, yes.
They're very bad, the reptilians. We shouldn't like them. So, one of the stories is that the reptilians were at war with the Sidonians on Mars.
Okay. The reptilians being from a different planet?
Being from a different planet called Maldek.
Maldek.
Okay. Not Malbec. Malbec is a wine.
No, Maldek. I said
it's
that.
A lovely one. Did you?
You heard
I just got wine on the brain. I heard Maldek and I thought, ooh, wine.
I'll have some of that.
I'll drink a bit of that. So the reptilians lived on Maldek.
Yes.
They nuked. Basically, the idea is they nuked Mars. Mars then came back with the ultimate weapon, but destroyed Maldek, completely obliterated it. That destruction then became the asteroid belt.
Okay.
So Maldek is the asteroid belt. The reptilian survivors came to Earth and settled in the hollow moon, or the hollow Earth, so went underground on Earth.
Right, yes.
And hollowed out the moon and lived in the moon. The surviving Sidonians are humans. They came here.
Yeah, and then this goes back to the ancient cultures of Atlantis and Lemuria, which were supposedly linked with the refugees from Mars.
So there's two stories of that. There's one is that they were humanoid and they came here and they mated with us, and so we're sort of a hybrid.
We're a hybridisation.
Other ones is that we're just the survivors. So we are Martians. They came here in their rocket ships and then somehow just basically reverted to hunter-gatherers and lost all of their technology and all of their knowledge and started building with stone for 200,000 years. Yeah. The believers of this believe this happened 75,000 years ago. But I think that because that coincides with when we thought humans sort of evolved officially, but now we know it was much more like 200,000 years ago. Was this nuclear attack by Greys or the reptilians what actually then caused Mars to become uninhabitable?
Well, yeah. Good question. The mainstream says that it was just a natural process 3.1 billion years ago, but on the other hand, could these significantly larger nuclear explosions that there seems to be some scientific evidence for, that they did occur, could they have perhaps caused
somehow affected the core?
The core to solidify, and then following that, the atmosphere to be lost and the water to evaporate.
Damn reptilians! It's always the bloody reptilians. Destroyed the entire world. The Martians got them back though, so.
Well, yeah.
They literally turned their planet into dust. So maybe we weren't totally innocent in this either.
Well, there's always two sides to every story, isn't there? So there's a good chance if there's an interplanetary war between two intelligent rival species, there's a good chance both of them have done something wrong at some point.
Both of them were quite naughty.
Especially if other intelligent creatures exhibit the same traits that we humans do.
Oh yeah, no, we love a bit of war, don't we? So what's your thinking there? 'Cause I'll tell you very quickly what I think. I actually think there could have been a civilization on Mars.
Yeah,
I don't believe for a second that they evolved there. I would actually find it easier to believe that some sort of alien species came here 3 billion years ago. Earth was only recently smashed by the moon. Life was just starting on here, so I don't know why they went to Mars, but anyway. If set up a colony on Mars, and then the atmosphere started to become unlivable, and then they left.
Yep.
But I could see that they would maybe leave markers behind, and if they'd have left them on Earth, they could have left them on Earth as well, just as easily. I can believe that. I don't think the timeline fits for an intelligent species evolving on Mars. I don't think there's enough time.
Not in the mainstream, given how long a process it took for life on the Earth to go from single cell bacteria to
Yeah, I mean...
The Cambrian explosion.
Unless the 3.1 billion years thing is not true. It's not right.
In which case, that could give a lot bigger time scale for the life to have evolved on Mars.
In which case, if Brandenburg is right, and it was about 150 million years ago, yeah, why not? Humans or some sort of intelligent species evolved about the same time as the dinosaurs. We lost the dinosaurs.
Yeah, well...
I think if you go back and watch our Are We Alone episodes,
yes,
we talk about how there could be species far older than ours.
Yeah, we do actually.
There's no reason why they couldn't have come and visited us, and they probably would. They wouldn't let they hang around, not hang around. Whether they'd start building pyramids and things, I don't know. But it is interesting that we seem to have a thing about building pyramids on this planet, and then we look on Mars and they look like pyramids. So
there's a strong link there.
It wouldn't shock me if they actually found evidence of something. Well, it would shock me. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Let's see where Elon Musk picks his landing sites.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting.
Right on the face of Mars. He would do that just because it would get headlines.
There's attention. Yeah, he would. And I suspect he might do that as well.
So, yeah, that's where I land anyway. I think it would be perfectly reasonable. I don't believe this Reptilians and Maldek story even a little bit, but I don't actually believe almost anything David Icke says, however much I like the guy and I like listening to him.
He's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, isn't
he? He talks some shit. And there's no evidence to back up some of these stories, like say Maldek being destroyed. And I think it is total.
I do think the asteroid belt is most likely a destroyed planet.
I think it's a planet that didn't form or was destroyed.
Or was
most
destroyed.
Definitely.
One of the two.
But that's not the same as saying that there's any evidence to suggest it was called Maldek.
No.
And that aliens... And you know, so a lot of the evidence, even Brandenburg towards the end of his life, was saying that there's a lot of evidence to come from psychics and automatic writing viewers. And remote views and things, which, I'm sorry, is not even remotely evidence.
Yes.
The nuclear war thing, I personally think Brandenburg probably got it right first time. I think it was these natural nuclear reactors that we do see, we have seen on the Earth, we know happens. And that there probably was these nuclear reactors about 150 million years ago on Mars.
Yeah, and perhaps that's a natural process that we don't understand that's giving the unusual abundances of isotopes of specific elements like xenon and...
Well, again, it's because I think we mentioned this again in our Moon episode, that they've jumped on this evidence and said, on Earth, the only time we see that is in nuclear wars.
Yeah.
And it says, yes, but we have an electromagnetic field that protects us from a lot of the sun. The Moon and the Mars don't have that, so it's different.
Yeah.
The way these things react
they're
is
exposed
different.
to more UV rays and...
Well, high energy. I mean, the sun is like a massive, atom accelerator, and it's just, radiation is just like fucking, the solar winds are incredibly energetic, and they don't hit us, thank Christ, because we wouldn't survive if it did.
And maybe that, combined with these natural nuclear reaction sites, may be creating the isotopes in these abundances.
Our nuclear reactors, the natural nuclear reactors we've seen on this planet, were protected by the magnetic field. I think that's what I'm basically saying. If there's these nuclear reactors on Mars, they had no protection. They were being constantly bombarded by solar radiation. Would that explain why they're so much bigger than what we've seen on the Earth?
Good question.
So I think Brandenburg had it right first time.
Yeah.
And then he went woo and off that way.
Well, you can understand his theory and his line of thinking though, because on this planet we don't. The only way that you.
That's logical.
The only way that you affect, because the abundances of isotopes of a specific element, as far as we're aware, the abundances are constant. So when you get a spike in one particular isotope of an element, and the other ones obviously get, I suppose, reduced in abundancy slightly. Mm-hmm. The only reason that we've got for that, and the evidence we've got for that, is the 2,000 nuclear explosions we've let off on the Earth that has caused the same effect on the Earth, but not to the same extent that it's been observed on Mars. I
would love to see a proper archaeological study go on and go to Mars and have a look at these areas. One day, maybe.
Well, because you only need to visit 2 places as well: Sidonius, Mensa, and Galaxia's Chaos.
Yeah,
2 probes. It's almost like they could have done that when they just sent the last 2 probes.
No, I'd want to see us actually go up and dig shit up. We're not going to do that with a probe. We need to do that with a proper... I'd like to go and see a proper research mission done.
I'd have quite liked to see one of the rovers drive up to the side of the face and do it from ground level and see what's there at ground level, though, as opposed to just having satellite imagery. That would be amazing.
Yeah, actually drive up to it.
Yeah.
And... yeah, well, I mean, it's the same with some of these images we've seen, isn't it? That they're from the Mars rovers, and it's like we mentioned them earlier. There's images of like looks like bodies, and like you said, it's one that looks like wood, looks like a plank of wood.
Yeah, and things. Petrified wood.
And I'd quite like to see the rover just go up and sort of like ding ding ding. Just to sort of see if it is wood, just a thing, or you know, like pick up one of the skulls, something if it is a skull. But the thing is, if you look at enough pictures of rocks and you're looking for patterns, the one was they said it was a bear and it looked like a bear, but a live bear, not dead. They think it was a bear going, and I was like, no, it's just a fucking rock with a shadow. It's not. Oh, some of them. There's all this. Look, there's aliens. We can see the UFO. It's not. It's just a rock. Rocks
quite
in weird
often.
shapes sometimes.
Quite often, we do look for patterns that perhaps aren't necessarily there. Our brain's programmed to do that. So, well, fill in for our eyesight for starters.
Yeah, our eyesight takes in very limited detail, sometimes information, sometimes, and so our brains fill in the gaps with what we know, our knowledge, and it looks for patterns. Which is why sometimes you look at a cloud and go, "It's a bunny rabbit."
Yeah.
Bunny rabbit cloud. That doesn't mean it's aliens. That means it's we're looking for patterns. That
and you're seeing the pattern that you perhaps want to see.
Yeah, we're filling in the gaps, and maybe that's all this is. But the thing that interests me, I genuinely on this one, the fact that it's in the Cydonia region, this one of these nuclear blasts seems to have happened, is very coincidental.
Yes.
The positioning of these pyramids compared to the face is coincidental and is very interesting. And I genuinely believe there could have been some sort of colony on Mars.
Yes.
There's no reason to believe there couldn't have been.
Yeah.
So
when you start adding coincidences onto each other, you know, the probability of it naturally occurring just multiplies exponentially.
So that's it then. That's Mars done. Our next episode is going to be about the Anunnaki.
And another ancient
civilisations,
creation myths as well.
Yeah, we're doing creation myths. So now the next episode really is all about the rise of the humans. All right. So thanks so much.
Week.
See you again.
See you.